going today?
Not too bad. We're enjoying the weather, and it's been okay at home.
Good. So we've worked for a bit together. So today I just wanted to kind of do kind of an update and see how Juan's doing at home. And with school and everything that's kind of happening. And so it's, quarterly, we've talked about this in the past, but every quarter we do kind of update our assessment. And then specifically we use what we call the PECFIS. So it's one of the functional assessment tools that we use to help determine, continuing in services, is it time to look at other services, need, eligibility. So today I'd like to kind of go over that PECFIS with you and kind of see where Juan is from when he first started into services and where he is now.
Okay.
So are you feeling up for that?
Absolutely.
All right. In the past, when we've talked about the PECFIS, we've talked about the domain areas where we kind of assess, and we assess for kind of behavior, what's going on with the behavior. And one of the things that we look at is kind of the worst behavior that's happened in that kind of 3-month rating period. So for us, that time frame is looking back the 3 months between like spring break to current.
Okay.
So that's kind of the time frame we're looking at, give or take a week or two. But just to give you a kind of a frame of reference, that's the time frame we're looking at. And we're gonna just talk a little bit about how Juan's doing at home and at school, how he does when you go out into the community, if you were to go to parks or take him to the grocery store, behaviors, a little bit about his mood, how his thinking is, so those areas. And I brought the PECFIS with me today, so if you want to see that. In the past, we've talked about too that the PECFIS is a rating scale, so we rate kind of behaviors based on this scale of a 30, a 20, a 10, or a 0, with 30 being, most severe behavior, a 20 moderate behavior, a 10 mild behavior, kind of typical behavior you might see for kids, and a 0 that you're not really seeing a behavior concern in that domain area. So I brought it for reference for us,
Okay.
And so that I don't forget one of the domains that we need to talk about.
Perfect.
And then what I like to do with parents as well is kind of at the end, when we're all done, is look at the score and then look at the score together and agree upon, is that what you really meant? Is that severity level what you meant? So that's how I typically do that.
Well, I kind of feel like since we've been working together, I've seen improvement. So compared to where we started out when we talked about these things, I feel pretty good about things. So I'm definitely okay going through them.
Yeah, and previously we've looked at the PECFIS scores, and he's been fairly high. So I'm glad to hear that you feel like there's improvement. So tell me a little bit about how Juan has done with school.
So he's doing okay at school. I've definitely seen some improvement, but I feel like the teachers still really need to help him out with a lot of tasks and things that he does. So maybe even a little more than some of the other kids. He's got to get some support there from them still.
And support in more the way of like extra reminders to complete tasks, to stay on task.
Yeah. And sometimes just to keep his behavior under control, so he tends to get a little excitable and maybe not be able to focus and probably want to mess with his friends more than other kids. So
I believe you guys recently had conferences.
we did.
So how did that go with the teacher?
They said that they've definitely seen some improvement with him, but they still do a decent amount of work with him, pretty frequent reminders.
When we first started working together, he had a pretty significant behavior plan, and they've kind of backed off on that behavior plan.
Yeah.
So are they still implementing a behavior plan, or is it more just giving reminders?
Yep, I think it's definitely changed, and they've kind of been able to give him less than what he was getting in the past. They're still doing the reminders, and then they will do the the magic treasure box less
Okay.
often, so he only needs that a couple times a day now.
Oh, that's good. Where he was getting it almost hourly at
Right.
the beginning, so
Right.
significant improvement. How about grades and academics? Are they pleased with his progress and where he is academically?
I think because he's able to focus more, then he's getting more work completed, and so he seems to be learning better and reading a little bit more fluently, those kinds of things. So yeah, definite improvements in academics.
Is that does that result in less homework for you guys at night, like extra homework?
Yeah, he's not really one to do any of that when he gets home.
So it takes away that stress because
Yes.
you're not having to
Yep.
recreate the school
Yeah,
environment.
he
at
doesn't
home.
really want to follow my rules so much at home.
Okay.
So it's much easier when he can get it done at school.
So let's talk a little bit about how he's doing at home. So when we first started working together, he's a little bit more aggressive towards siblings and struggling
Yeah.
more with following rules and directions. So how would you say he's been doing now?
Well, I've seen improvement, but his behavior really gets in the way. So anytime, you've taught me how to kind of structure bedtimes and routines, but his behavior still gets in the way of those. So it's still really hard at bedtime. It's hard getting dressed and ready for school in the morning. Any of those kind of things that I've tried to schedule, he still fights me on those things.
Tell me a little bit more about the specific behaviors that you're seeing.
Yeah, so it's more like tantrums now. So instead of him punching and destroying things like he was, it's more he's going to throw a tantrum, cry, lay on the floor, yell, go to his room, those kinds of things. And it's usually when he doesn't get his way. So if I say it's bedtime and he doesn't want to go to bed, then he'll throw a fit and, kind of do this fake crying or lay on the floor, kind of that kind of thing.
How long are those tantrums lasting? So they used to last for hours.
Yeah, no, I would say probably 20 to 30 minutes now at the most.
Okay.
It's gotten better, but it's still like I can't just go through a normal routine with him. He's got to throw the fit first and
But he's not being
eventually-
destructive.
No, he hasn't been hurting anyone or destroying anything, so that's an improvement.
When he kind of when he's done with his tantrum as you described, is he able to then follow the direction?
Yeah, he gets back to doing what he's supposed to at that point.
So he's starting to self-regulate a little bit
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
end. Okay. And are you feeling pleased with that progress?
Well, it's certainly better than where we were at, so I think we have a little bit of work to do, but I think we're getting there. He's starting to get used to the structure a little bit more.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Any other worries or concerns about behavior at home, or any positives you want to talk about?
Sometimes I notice, like if he doesn't get his way, he gets kind of angry, those kinds of things. So that's really the only other, sometimes seems moody, like when he doesn't get what he wants. So and that comes out as like anger.
Sometimes, when we've talked about in the past, you've said sometimes it's because you thought maybe he wanted your attention or he didn't know how to ask for help.
Right.
Is he getting better at asking you for help?
I think I'm getting better on cueing him.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure he's at the point where he knows how to ask yet. So when he doesn't get his way and he gets angry, it seems pretty quick too. But then I can ask him, what do you need, or those kinds of things. So yeah, I think it's helping me so I can help him.
Are you feeling like you're able to recognize some of those we've talked about in the past, like triggers, things that will lead up to kind of the meltdown or the tantrum? Are you starting to recognize like, oh, that's probably gonna trigger and intervene before?
Yeah, so sometimes I can set him up so that he knows what's coming, so
Okay.
it's not necessarily just me saying no or, something like that. So I can kind of prepare him a little bit, which seems better.
And we've talked about some of that setting up, especially when you start to go out into the community and do
Yeah.
activities. So
Yeah.
as a family, I know we've talked about where you've had to cancel like plans
Yeah.
because behavior was pretty difficult, and he's had some pretty major tantrums in the past when you've been to the park or you've gone to the splash pad or the store and they didn't have something. How's he doing?
Now he's doing great. Like
Okay.
we can actually tell him what our plans are and he gets excited and we can go out in public and I really don't have that many issues.
So how's he doing though, like, how's he done when, because we've had some like thunderstorms where it's been beautiful days and if you've said, we're gonna go to the park today and then suddenly a storm pops up and plans change, how's he doing with that?
You know, when we're at home and plans change, then sometimes I have the behavior again. But it seems like when we're out in public, then he doesn't do it quite as much.
So great improvement there where he's, his kind of the behaviors that you want to still curb are just happening in the home environment and not out in the public environment.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think so too.
Makes it nicer so you guys can plan activities.
It is very nice to get out and to let him run off his energy in other places too.
And when you've gone into restaurants or behavior has been good or if you've had to leave.
We've kind of planned out what we're gonna do when we get there and he kind of has an idea of what he might like to eat and how we're gonna do it. And so I think he's getting more used to that too, so it's a little more comfortable.
Great. And your reaction isn't escalating with him at that same time,
Right.
so.
I'm not as worried about going out, so I think that was part of it too. I have to be more calm around him in order for him to react to me a little bit better.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. In talking about his behaviors, how is he doing with his behaviors with his siblings?
So, you know, I've seen improvements as far as aggression, but he still really doesn't want to share his toys and things like that. So there's a few bumps there where he wants to do it his way. He wants to play, you know, what he wants to play, and he wants to make sure that he has choice of what the toys are and that kind of thing. So that's still there, but I would say overall, there's really not the aggression anymore.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, he has an older sibling and a younger sibling.
Yeah.
And so is he still a little bit more controlling with the younger sibling? Or
yeah, I
is it
think so, but
okay.
the younger sibling, I guess, kind of lets him pick and choose the toys where sometimes, you know, the older one wants to play his thing and that doesn't go over so well. But at least, you know, I don't have to worry anymore about anybody getting hurt.
At school, I know we've talked about in the past, like he was on kind of a restrictive recess program because of the aggression and stuff. How's he doing with recess at school?
Yeah, it's going a lot better. They're trying to give him certain activities that he can play and kind of teach him the rules that way. So he doesn't have as many options that get him wound up. So he's doing better. He's, again, not really aggressive at recess anymore. Sometimes has a hard time if he has to share a toy or a jump rope or something like that. But other than that, he's doing pretty well.
But making progress.
Yeah.
Is he talking about friends at school? He hasn't done that. So
I've started hearing a few names.
Okay.
And so I think that that's going better. And he said that he's actually used the friendship bench a couple times, and they've been teaching him how to do that. So yeah, he seems to be getting along with kids a little bit better.
I like that idea at the school to have the friendship bench. If you need somebody to play with, you sit on the bench.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about the neighborhood kids, where he has really struggled, you know, getting along with the neighbor kids and stuff?
Well, there's a few kids that I've just kind of cut off from playing with him because it just doesn't go well. But there are a couple younger ones. He seems to do a little bit better with some of the younger kids, and he's been getting out more and playing with them. So I'm happy to see him getting out of the house and starting to have some relationships with other people.
Is he doing better with some of that structured play?
Yeah, you know, for a while he just wanted everything his way completely, and the kids just kind of shunned him and didn't want to be around him. And then I've seen him kind of go from playing in the same area to now kind of interacting with other kids and doing it a little bit more appropriately than in the past.
How about his level of aggressiveness with you, where he used to get?
Yeah, so he's not doing the punching and kicking anymore. Still sometimes the yelling and telling me no and doing the tantrums, but really no aggression anymore.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's gotta feel good.
It's really exciting to have my kid back, you know.
Right, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit then, the aggression and the stuff, that is decreasing.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how his mood is, how his mood's been the last 3 months.
Yeah, so I think the intensity has kind of dropped, but he gets angry pretty quickly and pretty frequently, more when he has to follow directions or when he's told no. So that's still happening, but he's calming down a lot faster.
Okay. So a little quick, intense.
Yeah.
But then he's escalating quickly, but then de-escalating faster.
Yeah. But he kind of goes from from calm to angry pretty quickly. But he doesn't really seem sad anymore or things like that. Like I don't really see him worrying a whole lot or being sad.
How about like having any fear, or is he anxious? Are you seeing any of that nervousness?
Yeah, I think that's going away.
Okay.
With structure, I think that's been helpful.
Okay. So it sounds like, yes, he gets angry quickly,
Yep.
but it's going away quickly,
Yeah.
but
Doesn't
with the
really-
anger, you're not getting the aggression.
No, and I'm
So-
not really seeing him be as nervous or as sad as he was, so.
Is he applying some of the skills he's learning with the therapist in regards to his mood? So I know, there's been some work on understanding feelings and recognizing, are you really angry versus are you sad or frustrated or embarrassed? Is he starting to use some of that?
I think so. He's starting to talk about his feelings a little bit more, and he's starting to use some of his calm down techniques.
Okay.
So sometimes I'll see him breathing, using his hand or things like that. So I think that that's part of what's helping him not to stay angry so long.
And some of those are the skills he's learned at school.
At school and in
then
therapy.
In
yeah.
therapy, if they're using those same skills, and then you can use them at home
Right.
as well. So that's a really nice connection for him.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We talked about before about so he would sometimes, when he would get really mad, hit his head on the wall, especially
Yeah.
when he was tantruming, he would hit his head on the floor. Or in public, he used to try to escape from you, and he would try to run into the street or in places where it wasn't safe, and he would make comments about, I don't want to live, I don't want to be here. How is that going?
Yeah, so really over the past few months, he hasn't done that at all.
Okay.
I've noticed that when he tantrums, he's not hitting his head, he's not hurting himself. He's been really good in public. I haven't really worried about, trying to have him corralled all the time and stuff. He knows that he's got to stay by me or hold my hand or hold Big Brother's hand, something like that, and he's been doing really good. So no worries really anymore.
He's not pinching or scratching at himself or pulling his hair or any of that. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, that makes me really happy.
Oh,
Nice
yeah.
to feel safe again.
Yeah. And does he make any comments about I shouldn't be here, I don't want to be alive?
No, he seems pretty happy now.
Okay.
So I haven't really heard any of that kind of language.
See, when he used to get really mad at you, he would say those things, and now he's not saying those, or he'd say that to the teacher, which would then get him out of doing classwork and sit down.
And I think it's probably been, gosh, I don't know, I would say at least since Christmas, so it's been a long time.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
We used to, talked a little bit before about sometimes his thinking patterns,
Mhm.
and so he, tell me a little bit about his thought process and.
Yeah,
And-
so, he's always been a really creative kid, but I'm a little concerned because he's still, at age 6, he will kind of wave at the trees and think that they're waving back, and so he's has some strange things that he does. You know, and at 4 it was kind of cute, and I didn't really say a whole lot, but I'm like, as he's getting into school, I don't want him to be, you know, the strange kid, so some of that's a little bit odd to me, and I think maybe, you know, to some of the adults around him, so.
So sometimes they talk about that as like magical thinking, and so, you know, it's not unusual for little kids, younger kids to kind of have this imagination. Do you think it's more like an imaginary, like he's just being very creative and imaginative because he's been kind of alone for so long, or is it that he really is believing that the trees are waving at him?
It's kind of hard to tell. You know, I don't really see him do a lot of talking to them and things like that. It's more like, you know, he's always kind of done it, so I don't really see anything different. He's just not really growing out of it, I guess.
And maybe that's something that we could talk about in another time, or some things to look for.
I just worry about what other people might be thinking. You know, it's kind of strange.
When you see him playing with other kids, does he reference stuff like that?
Not usually.
No?
I think he's distracted enough and has, you know, other kids to play with that I don't usually see it happening when he's playing.
Is it comments that he says to you, or is he just saying? Does he say it to his brother, his older brother?
Yeah. He doesn't usually talk about it a whole lot. Like he just kind of does it. You know?
Has his teacher mentioned him some of the that odd behavior or that odd thinking?
She's seen it on the playground sometimes,
okay.
But more when he's not engaged with the other kids.
Is there? Does she ever mention that it's interfering with his ability to complete his schoolwork?
Not so much in the classroom, I guess. I think there's a lot going on in there, so it distracts him.
So more when he's kind of alone and.
Yeah, I think so.
And something you're just concerned about, but you're not.
Yeah, I'm concerned just because of his age.
Kind of on a scale of 0 to 5, with 0 no concern and 5 I'm really concerned.
Yeah.
Where would you think that rates?
Probably in the middle.
Okay.
I think I'm probably a 3 now just because of his age. When he was younger, I didn't worry about it at all. I just thought, well, that's, you know, him being a kid.
Okay.
He's never really had an imaginary friend, but it's sometimes other things.
And I don't remember if we've talked about this in the past or not, but is there any family history of any relatives that have been diagnosed with schizophrenia or some psychosis?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Nobody within our immediate family. So, you know, I think my older son had an imaginary friend too when he was younger, but he grew out of it. So.
Does he watch videos or movies that have
Sometimes.
some of that talking characters or talking
sometimes
sides?
my older son will have things on that maybe he shouldn't be watching.
Or some YouTube videos? I know those
I
YouTube
can't always
videos.
keep it from him.
Right. So because I kind of wonder if maybe a little bit of that is happening as well.
Yeah, it certainly could be.
But I would definitely be interested in having more conversation about, his thinking. And maybe you could write down, if he makes some of those comments that you think are unusual, or times when you think that things are unusual, we can look at that and see if there's a pattern, or just see if it references around what's going on at the time. So, did he just watch a TV show or a YouTube video and then he's out and he thinks he's doing that? So trying to differentiate between kind of kid imagination and further concern.
I can start kind of writing it down to keep track.
Okay, and that's something we can ask his therapist too to watch for, and his teacher.
Okay.
He's still at that age where I don't know that it's really significant and worrisome yet. It's not interfering with learning, it's not interfering with his, kind of daily activities, but if it does, we'll talk about that further.
Okay, that sounds good.
You've provided me with a lot of information, and do you have some time that you could sit with me afterwards and we can kind of actually rate
Sure.
the
Yeah,
PECVA
I'm
score?
curious to see, because I feel like he's made a lot of progress, so I would love to do that.
From when he started till
Yeah.
now? Okay, so we'll do that in just a couple minutes. We'll take a few minute break,
Sounds
and then
good.
you and I can do this. All right?
Yep.
All right, thank you.